Hello and welcome to Media7, filmed at the Classic Comedy Club in Auckland in front of a live audience. Tonight, we will be looking at three topics. Nikki Hager and Associate Professor Ursula Chia of the Canterbury Law School will be joining us to talk about whether defamation law in New Zealand is helping silence debate. Also, we will be talking about the role that new media, like Twitter and amateur video footage, have played in news gathering about the protests in Iran following the contested election. Is this a citizen journalism revolution? But first, talk radio. It's known for throwing up extremes of opinion. But where is the line between opinion and incitement? This is a selection of what John Tamihere had to say on his 16 June radio live show. Comments arising from news that a man had been charged with deliberately spreading HIV, but granted name suppression.
I just thought, hey, I've had a guts full of this, you know? I've had a guts full of it just slides past, you know? And everybody says, oh, that's what homos do, so it's okay. Well, it's not okay. Or not, obviously not all gays are raving lunatics that are right into promiscuity, right? But it would appear that a big number are. The only talkback show that you'll ever have hearing discussing this is this one here. Okay, the other wankers on the other side are too bloody politically correct to do anything. And here's the other thing: mainstream media won't go near it either.
Well, joining us to discuss the musings of JT are that Radio Live host John Tamihere. Also, Claudette Hoiti, who is a producer of fiery informed talk show Eye to Eye.
Kia ora, I'm also John's producer on The World According to Willie and JT as well too, by the way.
You have quite a handful there. And also Michael Stevens, who's a researcher at Auckland University, who was spoken to for a close-up story that talked about the issue at the heart of this. Thank you all for coming on the show. To start things off, John, how did you come to be making those statements on the show? How did you choose that issue to talk about?
We do a huge amount of research as we come into our show, you see. And so we look at the front pages of the papers and what's banging around there. And it was either swine flu or Glenn Mills. And so we sort of tossed the coin, it was Glenn Mills, right? And because that was a topic that had a lot of vim and vigour in it, in terms of getting the talkback lines going. Simple as that.
And so when you came to make these statements, you were trying to incite a bit of debate, get people talking. What research did you do about kind of other cases where name suppression had been given to see if this was out of whack that the judge gave him name suppression?
Oh, quite a bit, actually.
Did you? What did you look at? No.
No. Look, well, one way, I'm trained, right, as a lawyer. So what you do is you look at suppression orders, and the beauty about talkback shows is that you can opine on why perhaps a suppression order was granted, right? And then so there's a way of introducing a whole bunch of information that others might not, or well, they might fear to tread in that particular area. Yeah. So one is you do enough research to protect yourself in the way in which you run the program.
So do some of the statements exist just to kind of kick off a bit of feeling, get people calling in? Do you stand by everything that you say?
Oh yeah, of course you do, because you've got to rev it up, you know. And it's not about, talkback isn't about huge, it's not national radio, you know. Afternoons with Noel McCarthy. It's a totally different type of program. Okay, and so what you've got to do is that you've got to rev up views on both sides of the fence and just see how it plays out.
Do you stand by all those statements?
Yeah, I do.
Like the idea that mainstream media won't go near it?
Yeah, I think that they were extraordinarily poor on the 16th. All right, it did start to get some momentum coming into the lifting of the suppression order on the Friday.
The way that issue had first got to the police was through a story on Close Up, so it had actually come out of the gay community onto Close Up and then to the police. So
I regret I don't watch Close Up much, so I wasn't aware of that. But anyway, even if it was, it didn't sort of catch on, did it, in mainstream media or copy.
How about cases similar to this where someone was charged for deliberately spreading HIV? The other cases hadn't actually been homosexual cases.
What cases are you talking about?
There are two other cases where people had been charged for deliberately spreading HIV, but both have involved transmission from heterosexual men to heterosexual women.
Yes, so what?
So you do stand by saying this is a homosexual problem?
No, there's no doubt about that.
even though the other 2 cases out of the 3 were not homosexual.
No, the incidence, if you're looking about the incidence in terms of the increase of HIV and AIDS, you'll find that it's more prevalent in male homosexual relationships than it is elsewhere. If you were to look, see, we've got Claudette here. Now, Claudette is a lesbian, right? Now, on that basis, you could ask her the question: do lesbians, okay, in the lesbian world, do they have a strong proclivity to passing on HIV/AIDS? And that's a question you should ask her rather than me.
I'd like to ask Claudette a question, but I don't know if that question is actually addressing the topic that we're looking at. You know, we're looking at your statements about...
I'm addressing the topic, okay, that you've asked.
No, we're looking about your statements about a specific case, not about straw men.
We're talking about Glenn Mills, aren't we?
Lesbian. Yes, we are. And does it actually water down...
It's not straw men, actually.
Well, straw lesbian.
No, the reality is I've just asked you the question. HIV/AIDS is stronger in terms of the incidence and the increase of it amongst homosexual male populations as opposed to lesbian female populations. That's a fair point.
It just so happens that we have an HIV researcher with us this evening in the form of Michael Stevens. What do you make of those comments? And then we will go to Claudette to ask about...
Well, I mean, if I could just say to John, I mean, don't you employ a fact checker? Because you said that Mills was out on bail with name suppression when that wasn't true. He was held in remand the entire time. You did say that on air. So you didn't actually have your facts very well in line, did you?
The newsroom provided me with a story which indicated that was the truth. So the newsroom
can't afford a fact checker?
No. Then I found out after the 3 o'clock news and then corrected
that you were wrong.
And then corrected it between 3 and 4.
That you were wrong.
Yeah,
that you had been wrong. In terms of, I mean...
what are you going to crucify me?
Well, we don't really have the time.
We don't have the time at all.
If there's a problem about the bail,
you've got that one.
But rather than the minute, the bigger issue here.
In New Zealand, yes, HIV tends to be focused amongst not just gay men, but men who have sex with men, because there are a lot of men who have sex with men and women, and Mills would appear to be an example of that. He's been allegedly has had sexual relations with women as well. So that group of men who have sex with men is the largest group in New Zealand and in most of the developed world. Globally, HIV is largely heterosexually transmitted, over 90%, when you look at the actual global pattern of it. So what we have in the developed world, however, is it's something that's much more closely tied into men who choose to have sex with other men at different times, whether they're gay identified or not.
If we can pull this back to the media issue here, Claudette, you are the producer for Eye to Eye, which has a lot of fiery, informed opinion.
That's right, Eye to Eye with Willie Jackson.
Would this kind of commentary wash for you on the show?
Well, the thing about Willie Jackson, the host of Eye to Eye, is that he's evocative and provocative, and so that's his nature. The thing about talkback radio, though, the culture around talkback radio is that it elicits controversy. So the hosts that are part of talkback radio are shock jocks, and they deliberately entice controversy. So there's been a lot of study been done here in New Zealand and in Australia. Judy McGregor here from Massey University had stated that talkback radio is incoherent conversation, low-level murmurings and low-level intellect that actually feeds on a certain type of community, and the shock jocks are usually white, middle-class, male, conservative. Talkback radio, Australian research has shown that it's because of the conservative nature of talkback hosts, talkback radio is also very conservative. So the responses that it elicits from the listeners and the callback people is more about emotive responses as opposed to intellectual debate. So talkback is not about debate and discussion. It is not about intellect. It is about provocative, evocative emotions being elicited from a core group of community, usually conservative. The other thing about the research done both in Australia and in the United States is that the hosts are usually, male, white, and are also quite bullish in nature.
But let's look at this specific case, though, where we don't have a white male host. We have someone who's making comments that could be seen as difficult to a minority group.
Although Willie and JT are Māori, they are probably the only two Māori, apart from Bennett, Mark Bennett. They're the only two Māori talkback hosts but they are both seen to be quite conservative. Even Willie is seen to be quite conservative
So
amongst
what
minority
does
groups.
do these kind of comments do for the debate?
It marginalises minority groups. Talkback marginalises minority groups, marginalises Māori, and it marginalises homosexuals as well too. Therefore, the conservative ideology is promoted.
But is it okay when it's done? I mean,
No. And then the Talkback also argues that it's freedom
Joe's
of
fault.
speech, but freedom of speech does not mean freedom, a free licence to denigrate and to discriminate. Now, comments like your sidekick, for instance, your sidekick used the word bummers and all the homosexuals should go to Australia. Now, that's a free licence to denigrate and to discriminate. And that is exactly what Talkback does.
Way over the top. Yeah, appreciate it.
You know, and also too,
but you've got to be careful about where you're going, okay, in terms of censoring.
It's not free speech, it is free licence to denigrate and to discriminate.
I don't know if it is censoring.
That's what Talkback Radio is all about. So John, when you say, you know, and going back to factual accounts, when you say that, you know, he got name suppression, that's inaccurate. And that's also against broadcast standards as well too.
When you say that can we bring Michael in here? When you say that the gay community was ignoring it, and
see, this is completely
this
wrong
did
as
come
well.
out of the gay community.
It did come out of the gay community. We're the ones who pushed the button on this. We're the ones who actually made all of this happen. And then it got picked up by the mainstream media. So without the active involvement of the gay community, and particularly gaynz.com, who really pushed that story when everybody else was being quite scared of it, they ran with it, and that alerted the mainstream media to it.
And do you think, Michael, that what Claudette's raised here, the idea that this kind of talk can be denigrating to homosexuals? Did you find this?
Oh, definitely. Looking through the transcripts, and again, as you've just said, more of what your sidekick was saying was particularly insulting and nasty in terms of the comments he was making about gay people. So yeah, I didn't appreciate that at all.
Do you accept this though, John? I mean, what do you think?
No. I think that there's a fine line. There's a possibility that Leo got carried away. I accept that.
Well, no, how about if I replace homos with Maoris here? I just thought, I've had a guts full of this, you know, it just slides past them and says, that's what Maoris do, so it's okay. Whenever you use a word like homos or Maoris, it's denigrating.
No, we suffer that.
Journalists,
Jews. No, Māori suffer it all the time, right? Yeah. All the time. So
is that okay?
No, it's not an issue.
Talkback discriminates against minority communities, and Māori have been getting this
so it's not
for
John's
years,
fault, it's
for
Talkback's
over
fault.
40 years. No, John is a product of Talkback culture, and John actually helps to elicit Talkback culture. Now, you know, going to the Broadcast Standards Authority, you know, one of the things is, you know, accuracy, inciting hatred, which, you know, is a breach of law and order. You know, saying when you set the tone and the tenor of the talkback, you know, by saying the comments that you did, and then allowing a caller to come to air and said, well, all homos need to get the bash.
And they didn't do this off nothing.
No,
they did this
they
because
chopped them off, which is fine, but the tone and tenor of the show has already been set.
I'm going to have to stop you there, but as a final thought here, I mean, would you do anything differently again?
In light of the circumstances, probably not. But what I'd say...
Check your facts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I will. I'll get better on the facts. But I don't go to nzgay. Whatever it is, you see, to get my information. That's the sort of stuff. And here's the other thing. It's about resourcing and the ability to do all your production. Well, I think we do okay.
We will have to leave you on that thought there. Thank you for your time discussing...
Are you coming out of the closet?
See, that's the kind of talk that doesn't help, does it?
Only if you go first.
It's quite kind of adolescent. But well, thank you for your time discussing that. Thank you for coming on, Claudette and Michael, and especially to you, John, for coming on. We'll go to the break with a slightly different look at talk radio. I went out to see what pressures these hosts face and found that some of the varied ways that the audience talks back.
Talk radio. Anyone could do it, right? Wrong.
It's a lot harder than people think. It's the scariest job in the media.
That's Mitch Harris, Radio Live boss. What makes a good talk radio host?
People who have had experiences that have been there, have seen things, know what's going on. People who are empathetic, can listen to another person's point of view, and also people who've got good, strong opinions themselves.
Is that the stupidest coaching decision you'd ever seen?
Bill Ralston?
The more controversial, the better. It's actually better if you're a fascist, because right-wingers seem to be able to voice a whole range of opinions that liberals really can't. And the extreme right, there's nothing like the extreme right for really stirring up calls.
And Noelle McCarthy. She did overnights for ZB. It was hard.
You definitely need a lot of stamina, because the thing I didn't realise when I went into it is that you're sitting in a chair by yourself in a usually darkened room for 6 hours, waiting for people to call you.
It's just the host, the microphone, an otherwise empty room, the midnight hours, and the assembled crazies.
You're talking to people who desperately want to be heard and have very little to say.
What do the listeners get out of it?
People love a good row, and talkback gives it to them. I think it also stimulates their mind in the sense that it gets them talking about issues. They get into a kind of karaoke radio of sort of, you know, even if they're not on the phone, they're yelling at it or they're applauding it.
The audience can surprise too.
People give you things when you do talkback. This is Barbara. Barbara does flower pressing. This comes from someone who is currently incarcerated at Wanganui prison. And no, I'm not going to stalk you when I get out in a year or two. So please don't freak out. Another smiley face.
Wow. Are there good things?
We often hear about the bad aspects of talkback, but in terms of radio, talkback can also provide the most rewarding radio there is.
Sometimes people, you know, are hilariously funny, and sometimes people are just wonderfully mad.
So, finally, does talk radio help or does it hurt?
It's the burning mill where the villagers gather with the torches. It gives them a place where everyone can come together and gang up against, you know, a bête noire or some sort of pariah.
It's a safety valve for a lot of people, but I think it also probably winds up people to the point where they're beyond any safety valve. So, you know, it probably does as much harm as good if you're talking about the public psyche.
I think it gives people the opportunity to participate in our democracy. It gives people the opportunity to put their points across. And as I say, I think it's actually incredibly good.
And I just hope I never get desperate enough to have to do it again, but yeah.